would be a requirement for including a student in the group who doesn't already qualify as an English learner? What would we be looking for?
Well, I think using the data, I feel like it would be beneficial for us to look at kids who have averaged less than 50% on their first two assessments, because they're going to benefit from any additional instruction. But I think especially in the area of vocabulary, it would really help with that math vocabulary.
Good idea. Yeah.
Then how do we know, like, when someone is ready to exit, like when we feel like they're doing well, how do we know when they're ready to exit, or how do we bring kids into the group who weren't previously in it?
Right.
I do think we could use like classroom observation as like informal data. So like, are the students using that math vocabulary during our problem solving time? Are they using it in small groups like during stations? And are they using it correctly? Like, are they showing understanding? And then I think if on their next assessment, after we do this, if we see growth, then we probably know, okay, they're doing better with this and we could exit them out.
Right. And then what about, kids who, like, as she mentioned, kids who are showing that we originally thought didn't really need it, but now we're seeing that they could really benefit from it.
Well, I know like in my room, I have some kids that have like attention deficits, and I think that this would be really beneficial for them. So I would want to include those kids.
Okay.
Even if like their data doesn't necessarily show it.
But then also thinking about the data as we move through the assessments, when we see the positive data and we're thinking about kids that are exiting, we're also looking on the flip side and seeing those low data points that are showing that they really would benefit from that additional instruction. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
yeah,
for sure. Definitely.
What are y'all thinking about SPED students?
I think
good question.
SPED students, since they already have access to the resource classroom, that's probably good for them. But then that way we can open up to the other kids in our classroom that could benefit from it, the extra instruction.
Yeah.
Are you guys thinking like you're just going to work on vocab only? Or are you also going to be teaching like our current content in these small groups at the same time?
That's a great question. So I think this is something that we can definitely reevaluate as we gain more data and we're able to reflect on that and see kind of what our low points are. But specifically just starting out with the vocabulary and kind of see how it logistically works in our classrooms. And then we're able to reflect on what's working well, what do we need to improve upon.
Okay.
I do think that as we get additional data from our upcoming benchmark, and if time allows, we would be able to incorporate this additional content instruction within this time frame. If we're not able to use it within this time frame, we still have our additional intervention block time.
Yeah.
Since this is only 15 to 20 minutes, if we need to, we can add that into the rest of our intervention block, which would give us that additional 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that idea. Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. And then also, do you guys feel like you would want to separate your own students, or would you want to reflect on the data together as a team and start moving students around?
You mean like within our room or within the grade level?
Yeah. So like, would you want to look at only your own students and then kind of make those decisions on who you think would benefit from it in your classroom? Or do you think it would be more beneficial if we sat down as a team and really dissected everyone's data and kind of moved, kind of flex grouped a little bit where, sharing students if needed, if my needs are higher than yours, then some of my kids might move over there. What do you guys think about that?
I think we should like each on our own look at it so we can come to the meeting knowing what our own class needs are. But I think it would be good also to talk about it as a grade level. So if we need to implement some flex grouping, like you said, because some classes might have a higher need than another. So I think we should come to the meeting knowing what our own data looks like. So I think we should do both. I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a great plan. So let's set a plan for our next meeting to come together, thinking about our particular kids and which kids you see might have the highest need. You're definitely going to include your English learners, and then also think about which students might also benefit from this kind of instruction. And then we'll come back with that plan, and then we can kind of make some tweaks, shift some kids around, and see what might be beneficial for all of us. Does that sound good?
Sounds a good idea.
All right, so we'll be meeting.
Much for joining me today for this reflective conversation. So I just have a few questions for you now that we have finished with our plan that we put in place. But this is just going to be a reflective conversation. So you have already been given the questions, so you've had a chance to kind of think about your responses, I hope. And just so you know, this conversation is going to be recorded. But so after digging into the data from our STAR last year, as well as the first couple of assessments that we did in math this year, we noticed that there was a weakness with our English language learners. And so we felt like we could target that weakness by focusing on direct vocabulary instruction with these English learners. So thank you so much for helping put that plan in place and implementing it with fidelity. I appreciate your effort so much. So I just have a few questions for you. So let's get started. Let me know how you think that you grew as an educator during this time that the plan was put into place.
Well, I focused on managing my time a lot better and making sure that not just managing the time and distractions, minimizing those distractions, but utilizing every instructional minute that we had. That's been a struggle for me, but I think that what we put into place helped me feel more secure about doing that, like that I needed to protect that time and be able to make these things happen and implement them. They're important for the growth. I also feel like I was able to analyze data better. This helped put on a different hat for me. I've always done a well job identifying students that are struggling or, but time management in implementing those extra steps and extra things that would help them grow can be hard. I mean, we know how it is in the classroom.
Yeah.
Using my team to work on that data analyzing helped open my eyes in a different way as well.
Yeah.
It made me more comfortable.
Yeah. And me personally, I love digging into data, but I know that it can be a struggle and a growing point for a lot of teachers. So I love that you mentioned that you felt it valuable to dig into that data with the team, because I agree. I think that we are better together, and we can reach a consensus together by all focusing on the same data points. All right, so how do you think our communication of the team grew?
Well, I think it encouraged us to talk, and we were sharing more about what was working in our classroom and what wasn't working. You have to share that part too. You can't only share the good. I know that it's hard to admit that what you spent all that time on didn't really make a difference, but that's something you have to do. It also, because we are able to share our struggles, maybe it wasn't a complete wash what we did, but we could like adapt it and change it. And someone else's viewpoint is sometimes what you need to hear. You kind of need to step back and hear someone else. And maybe what you did was great, but you could add something to it the next lesson to make that help that be better. Because everything could be better, right?
Right. Yeah, I think it's so crucial to hear what.
Yeah, and our overall communication as a team grew, which besides what happened with the students, the benefit was that our communication as a team grew too.
I love that. Well, tell me what you've learned about yourself during this process.
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, time management hasn't been great, but I've definitely helped and got better at it. I need to make sure that I focus on reflecting. I noticed that was something really important, that I needed to reflect on what I was teaching and then like what I could teach and add to that to help grow my students. And so I realized that I have a lot of instructional tools. I just need to use them in different ways, and using my team has really helped. And then implementing the differentiating of the words, you know, like not just the kids that are struggling, but everybody at where they are, meeting them at their level, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you mentioned differentiation, because I think that is something that we are always striving for every year. Your differentiation is so important, but you have a new crop of kids, so your differentiation looks different year to year. So I love that you mentioned that as well, because I think that that is definitely a growing point for everyone every year. How do you think the team was strengthened by this plan?
Like I said, with our communication, we were able to just sharing students and being able to um, deeply understand the student, not just the academic, but also the other parts. And they're all in our grade. So helping that and just having each other is really important.
Yeah, leaning on each other, definitely.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so I want you to think about our meetings that we had throughout the implementation of this plan. And I'd love to hear what you think were practices that we used in our meeting that you felt were valuable. And why do you think they were valuable?
I feel like one thing that really was wise on your part is setting up those meeting norms. Sometimes, you know, as teachers, we get our time sometimes doesn't seem valued as much. And setting those norms up helped with that. And everybody had their appropriate task and what was expected of them at each meeting. So then evaluation, because it was easy for us to get overwhelmed, you provided the data for us, and that really, really helped us, because then we were targeted. We were very targeted with our time.
Yeah, it's so easy to get overwhelmed because we could have data for days. So it's really helpful when we can dial in on specific things. So as the facilitator of the plan, what feedback would you offer me on this?
I think you did a great job of reminding us of our timeline and sharing relevant information that we needed for our groups. We had students moving in and out of groups, adjusting and adjusting and keeping the timeline going, and including us more content in our instruction, providing that for us. And I mean, just overall, that lean and support, providing that for us was very helpful.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. But on the flip side of that, you know that my goal is to move into an assistant principal role. So I would love to hear also what do you think I could do to improve if we were to do this all over again?
Well, I mean, I would say just keep in mind about last minute changes. It can be hard. Sometimes things don't go as planned, unfortunately. And this is something that I know would be hard for me as well. But as an administrator, you always have to be able to think on your feet and possibly turn on a dime. But I know it's really hard for people who are structured and they don't like changes at the last minute. And so I know that can be hard, but just keeping that in mind.
All right, I love that. How do you feel a collaborative group like ours could be a vehicle for positive change in our school culture?
Well, I mean, we've had a lot of talk amongst other people. I mean, you know, when you're at a school, you're not just within your team. And so we've talked about the growth. And, you know, a teacher in a previous grade may ask about a previous student, and just telling them what we're doing may spark something in them. I've noticed that it is encouraging us to work more vertically And that's important. We have to, it's a whole school collaboration. If each grade has to do their part, or we can't do what we need to do as a whole school. And that's to grow these students.
Yeah, our kids are their kids and their kids are our kids. And I love that we all